Hello, good afternoon to Facebook community. This is Bonnie Barclay. I'm coming to you on my Tuesday afternoon Trauma Talk in 10. And today we are going to be talking about trauma recovery. So whether you're watching me live or catching the replay, please comment below and let me know who's watching, and also if you have any questions. Feel free to grab something in case you want to jot something down to focus on or have an intention or goal around later on. Also, be sure to check out any of my posts this week because I try to tailor those posts to go with the topic whenever I have a Facebook Live. So, trauma recovery. In previous talks, we've talked about trauma, the nervous system, as well as trauma symptoms, including emotional flashbacks, and how to begin managing them effectively. So, a lot of my clients will say, how do you know when you're getting better? And you may have heard of the phrase, going from surviving to thriving when it comes to trauma recovery. So we're going to try and unpack that a little bit more today and dig a little deeper into 8 things that, while not exhaustive, are 8 things that you can look at to ask yourself, how do I know I'm getting better when it comes to trauma recovery? So let's jump in. The first one is a reduction in symptoms. So this can be that they occur less often, less intensely, or when they do occur, that they don't endure as long. And I think that's really important to notice because, especially when we're having a setback, we've been making progress and we're having a setback, it can be frustrating. And so asking yourself during that setback, are my symptoms as severe? Maybe they didn't last as long. And it puts some wind in our sails to see that we are making those gains. So the second piece I look at is, how is that voice doing with your inner critic? Is there a shrinking of your inner critic? Whether that's, again, in terms of frequency, or maybe that voice is getting a little bit softer and easier to deal with. So that can occur in different ways. Sometimes even just the mindful awareness of the voice improves, and it allows you to see how maybe that voice at one time served as a type of survival skill, and now you don't need that as much because you have other skills and resources available to you now. So what this translates to is less reactivity, both yours and others' human behavior. So you're not as reactive maybe to some of the things that other people are doing. An ability to let go of both hypervigilance and perfectionism, and maybe even some other survival skills as well that might, ignite that inner critic. So number 3, a gradual increase in your ability to relax when triggered and respond in more of a healthy balance of that fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And if you missed that video, be sure to check that out because I think that's really important to know, especially when, in trauma recovery, we see triggered as being such a bad thing. And certainly we don't want to be overwhelmed by that. But our nervous system is designed to respond if there is perceived danger. So when we are able to relax and maybe even step back and discern what's going on, we're in a better position to, again, respond rather than react. So remember that there's a continuum of polar opposites between fight and fawn. And this healthier mechanism and ability to respond allows you to move along that continuum as needed, when necessary, and with more balance. You'll begin to recognize an ability to spend an increased time in feeling good enough about yourself. So, number 4 is in line with this, an increased ability to relax in the company of safe enough others. So, we go from being able to move on that continuum to feeling good enough about ourselves to then seeing people as safe enough. And why is safe enough so important in that phrasing? Well, trust is a key issue for anyone who has experienced childhood trauma or ongoing and complex trauma of some sort. Being able to relax around others is a deep level point of recovery. It takes time to get there. That's understandable, right? This allows deeper healing. It is such progress to allow for more authentic, vulnerable, and reciprocal trusting relationships. It's hard. That statement of we're hurt in relationships and we learn how to heal in relationships. And the first step of doing that is identifying and being able to be around those safe enough individuals. And let me just add, as this pops in my head, safe enough does not mean we are rounding on our corners, changing our expectations about what safety is. It just means our ability to move out of hypervigilance, still having expectations. So, number 5, letting go of the idea that you will never have another flashback or symptom again. This kind of goes along with that series that I did on coping is done to eliminate symptoms, right? Well, healing does not mean that you will never have a symptom or flashback again. And this can be hard. I've talked about before how we like to believe that we're gonna just, time will heal it and it's gonna be gone. And even EMDR, we want to desensitize that. But it doesn't mean that that's not still part of our story and that there will not occasionally be triggers, right? So recovery is not designed to eliminate any signs or symptoms of trauma ever and ever and ever again. The goal is reduction and effective symptom management, just like coping is to help make negative feelings and situations more manageable. When we accept that we will sometimes experience symptoms, it improves our ability to recognize and respond more quickly and therefore more effectively, especially adding that component of self-compassion, self-soothing, and self-protection when things come up. We don't want to turn off that alarm system altogether. We want and need to be able to know when something's not okay. We just want to keep our thinking brain online so we can make decisions along with those triggers. So I know I talk about backdraft a lot when it comes to mindfulness, meditation, and self-compassion, but I want to just throw that in there just to show how important it is. And I never know who's listening to which video, so I like to remind any listeners of that concept of backdraft when you're doing any kind of self-compassion, mindfulness, or meditation work. Sometimes when you try to offer the wounds compassion, the critic can get worse, emotional intensity and flashbacks can increase. You are not doing it wrong. This is when I would encourage you to seek support from a therapist who can help you navigate these moments in your recovery process. All right, so number 6. This one's a big one. Grieving our childhood losses. I was just talking to a client about this the other day. This also includes an even deeper level of grieving, to include working through fear by grieving our loss of safety in the world. I want to repeat that again. There's a deeper level of grief that eventually has to occur that focuses on our fears because of our loss of safety in the world as trauma survivors. Then we go into another level, working through shame by grieving the loss of our self-esteem and for some, their entire sense of self. And I plan to address this further in at least one, if not several, talks about grief. Number 7, cultivating patience with the gradual progression of recovery. And I posted already this week, this is hard for me, patience. I keep a patience sign in my office. You might be able to go this way. See it behind me back there. I keep it in there for a reminder for myself and my clients. Recovery from complex trauma, where there are repeated betrayals of trust through abuse and neglect, takes time. Battling hopelessness is a struggle for many, and part of cultivating patience is having realistic goals for recovery. It is one of the reasons I like doing EMDR work with my clients. We target specific memories under one neural network and a negative belief at a time. We can't fix and change everything at once. Navigating the inner critic or other protectors allows you to work through those negative beliefs and associated memories, feelings, and body sensations to heal the wounds and let go of survival strategies that no longer serve you. You'll then have a greater capacity to care for yourself in healthier ways. Pete Walker states, as this happens, it becomes easier to tell whether you are guiding yourself with love or a whip. That's what that critic is, right? What if you realize you're guiding yourself by your inner critic, the whip? Well, he encourages survivors to try to disarm your critic and treat yourself with the kindness you would extend to a friend or any young child who's struggling and having a hard time. Why? Remember, the parts of us that carry the wounds of complex trauma are typically young. Nowhere is patience more important than with inner critic work. No more. That's where you will do the healing work. At first, the critic is too present, and therefore a goal to eliminate this part of yourself is unrealistic. Part of disarming is to understand its protective role and then shift perspectives to a more adaptive and self-supportive perspective. And EMDR is so helpful in that process. Number 8, the final one. Learning to handle unpredictable shifts in what Walker refers to as our inner emotional weather. Before entering a recovery process, many feel like they are struggling just to survive. Clients begin to recognize movement on this continuum of surviving to thriving when they experience more hopefulness and certainty by witnessing signs of healing or recovery. This is an important part of my work with clients, is helping them notice their progress, no matter how small or insignificant it seems. I try to remind my clients that progress is not linear. The bottom can drop out. There will be moments of regression, usually followed by another growth step. And I talk about that, that regression and then that rising up to another growth step. Recovery is never all forward progress. We can regress back to survival mode, tapping back into old strategies. We can feel small again. Trivial tasks can feel hard again. What is this? It's an emotional flashback, right? This can easily trigger hopelessness and that all or nothing thinking. Accepting that progress is not linear puts us in a better position to respond and manage these moments, which then allows us to reduce the negative impact, the intensity, and the duration of these shifts, as well as respond to what triggered the shift in the first place. Those insights are so valuable. Awareness of triggers is a recovery superpower, folks. It allows you to again respond differently once you realize what's going on. You'll begin to recognize a decrease in, some of these survival strategies like overeating or using self-medicating with substances to cope with these shifts. All right, so let's wrap it up today. The hard truth for today is that recovery is a lifelong process. It's never complete. That does not mean you will be in therapy your whole life, but it is hard. Triggers exist, and we are human. So sometimes we can manage these shifts alone, and other times we need support again. We have such compassion for those with medical illnesses like type 1 diabetes, recognizing it's something an individual will need to manage throughout life, developing effective skills along the way. I challenge you to work towards this view of the impact of your trauma, your complex PTSD. So the takeaway for today: sometimes when someone has a flashback or a regression in recovery, suicidal thoughts are part of this process. It can be hard to see the other side of this shift and that it will not last forever. To deconstruct what I refer this to as eternity thinking, and Walker talks about this in his book, we think that it's going to last forever. It's important to get help and gain perspective on that, to borrow the thinking brain of another, the hope of another during these difficult times. So today's takeaway is the number for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. It's available 24 hours a day. Help is always available. The number is 800-273-8255. Please write it down. Keep it accessible, whether it's for you or a loved one. The good news is that starting on July 19th, you will only need to remember and dial 988. Like the emergency number is 911, a mental health emergency number will be 988. So if you are in distress or experiencing a suicidal crisis, please reach out. We're here to help. I hope you have a good rest of your week, and I've got some vacations and different things coming up, so I'll be in touch about the next live. I'm going to try and map that out for August, kids going back to college, all the things. Have a great rest of your week again, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.